Thomas cut his hand last spring on a fence staple. Deep cut. The kind that bleeds fast and doesn't apologize for it. He was out by the far fence line, maybe a quarter mile from the house. No first aid kit, no bandage, just the field, and growing right there in the grass along the fence line, yarrow. White flowers, feathery leaves, the kind of plant most folks step right over without a second thought. Thomas knows what it is. He's known since he was 10 years old. He grabbed a handful, crushed the leaves in his palm, packed them against the cut, held it there. By the time he walked back to the house, the bleeding had slowed to almost nothing. That's not a story I read in a book. That happened on this property. My name is Silas Combs. I've lived in Harlan County, Kentucky my whole life. And today, I'm going to tell you about yarrow, what it is, what it does, why your great-grandmother almost certainly had it growing in her yard, and why you should too. This plant has two things going for it that most people have never heard of. It stops bleeding, and it breaks a fever. Two separate problems. One plant, and it's probably growing within 100 yards of wherever you're sitting right now. Yarrow is not exotic. It doesn't come from the rainforest. It doesn't cost anything. It grows in fields, ditches, meadows, fence lines, and roadsides across every single state in this country. It's so common that most folks consider it a weed. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't make money off of weeds. That's why you haven't heard of it. Let me tell you the history of this plant, because I think it matters. Soldiers carried yarrow into battle for thousands of years. Achilles, the Greek warrior, that's who the plant is named after, Achillea millefolium. The story goes that he used it to slow the bleeding of his soldiers' wounds on the battlefield. That is not myth dressed up as medicine. That is medicine that became myth because it worked so reliably that people built a legend around it. The plant earned names that tell you exactly what it does. Staunch weed, bloodwort. Soldiers, woundwort. Carpenter's weed, because carpenters carried it when they worked with tools that cut. Woundwort. Every single one of those names is a description, not a decoration. People named things what they did. The Cherokee people knew this plant long before any settler came into these mountains. They drank yarrow tea to break fevers. They used the leaves as a poultice on wounds. This land has known about yarrow for a long, long time. What happened is that we forgot. We got told to buy things instead. Papaw grew yarrow in the herb patch. He called it by both names, yarrow and staunchweed. He said his mother kept a jar of the dried leaves on the kitchen shelf for the same reason other people kept bandages. She used it faster than the bandages. Now, let me tell you how it actually works, and I'll keep it plain. The bleeding part first. Yarrow contains something called acetylene. It's an alkaloid, a compound the plant produces, and it speeds up the process of blood clotting. When you crush the fresh leaves and pack them against a wound, the acetylene gets into the tissue and signals the blood to thicken and close. It also has antimicrobial properties, which means it's not just slowing the blood, it's fighting infection at the same time. One plant doing the work of two products you'd buy at the pharmacy. The other thing yarrow does is reduce inflammation. A compound called chamazulene, same compound in chamomile, acts as an anti-inflammatory on the wound. So you have something that stops bleeding, fights bacteria, and reduces swelling all at once. There is real research on this, not fringe research. Published, peer-reviewed work that confirms what people have observed for thousands of years. The body knows. The plant knows. Sometimes the science just catches up later. Fresh leaves work best for wounds. You find the plant, you strip a handful of leaves, you crush them in your hand to release the juice. May says to work them in your palm until they're dark and wet, and you pack them against the cut. Hold firm pressure, same as you would with anything. Give it 5 to 10 minutes. In most cases, the bleeding will slow dramatically. For a deep wound that needs stitches, you still need a doctor. This is field first aid. This is what you do when you're a quarter mile from the house and the cut won't wait. This is what Thomas did. If you don't have fresh leaves, dried yarrow works too. You can powder the dried leaves and pack the powder directly into the wound. Or you can steep the dried herb in hot water, let it cool, and soak a clean cloth to use as a compress. May keeps a jar of dried yarrow leaves in the cabinet alongside the comfrey and the mullein. She has for 30 years. Now the fever part. This is the piece of Yarrow's knowledge that most people have completely lost. When you run a fever, your body is not malfunctioning. I want to say that plainly because there's a lot of confusion about it. A fever is your body doing its job. Raising internal temperature is how the immune system fights infection. It's a response, not a problem. What you want to do is support the fever, help it do what it's trying to do, not just suppress it with a pill and call it handled. Yarrow is what herbalists call a diaphoretic. That is a word that means it helps the body sweat. And sweating is how a fever breaks. Not how it gets suppressed, how it breaks, naturally. The heat comes to the surface, you sweat, and the fever releases. You make a yarrow tea, a strong one, and you drink it warm. I'll tell you exactly how in a moment. When the tea gets into your system, it dilates the tiny blood vessels near the surface of your skin. That pulls the internal heat outward. You warm up first, then you sweat. And as you sweat, the fever releases. This is different from what acetaminophen does. Acetaminophen suppresses the fever signal in your brain. It makes you feel better. It does not help your body finish what it started. Yarrow helps your body finish what it started. I'm not telling you to stop going to the doctor. I'm not telling you to manage a fever of 104 degrees at home with a cup of tea. If a child has a high fever, if an adult fever goes past 3 days, if there are other serious symptoms, you go to the doctor. That's not negotiable. What I'm telling you is that for a normal fever, the kind you get with a cold or a flu, the kind that sits at 101 and makes you feel terrible, yarrow tea is what May reaches for first. Has been for 40 years. Hasn't sent us to the pharmacy for a fever in a long time. Here's how she makes it. Dried yarrow leaves and flowers, 2 teaspoons per cup, 8 ounces of water, brought to a boil, then pulled off the heat, poured over the yarrow, cover the cup. A saucer on top works fine. Covering it matters. The volatile oils that do the work will evaporate out if you leave the cup open. Steep for 15 minutes, strain it, drink it warm, not scalding, warm. After you drink it, get under a blanket. Stay warm, let the sweat come. Drink a second cup 2 hours later if the fever hasn't broken. May sometimes adds a little honey to soften the taste. Yarrow is bitter. That's not a flaw. Bitterness in a medicinal plant usually means there's something real going on chemically. But the honey helps. The Cherokee drank yarrow tea for fever, same as May does. The mountain healers in this region, the granny women, the folks who kept these hollers alive before there was a hospital within 50 miles, they knew this plant the way May knows it. That knowledge got lost somewhere between a company telling us their pill was better and us believing them. Now let me tell you how to find yarrow and how to identify it, because that matters. Yarrow has feathery leaves. They look like ferns almost. Soft and deeply cut. Very fine texture. Run your fingers along one. They're slightly fuzzy, slightly aromatic. Crush a leaf. If it smells faintly spicy and medicinal, that's yarrow. The flowers grow in flat clusters at the top of the stem. Most common around here is white. You also see pink and pale yellow varieties. All of them work the same way. The stem is tough and fibrous. The plant stands maybe 2 feet tall, blooms from late spring through August. It grows in full sun mostly. Fence lines, roadsides, meadow edges. The kind of land that gets mowing once in a while but not too often. It spreads aggressively once it's established. Papa said you plant yarrow once and you have it forever. He was right about that. One thing to be careful of, false yarrow, which is a look-alike with similar flowers but no medicinal properties. The smell test is the best way to tell them apart. Real yarrow has that distinct medicinal scent when you crush the leaf. False yarrow does not. If it smells like nothing much, it's not what you're looking for. How to harvest and dry it. Cut the stems when the flowers are fully open. Morning is best after the dew has dried. Bundle them in small bunches, 6 to 8 stems. Tie them at the base and hang them upside down in a dry place with good airflow. The woodshed works fine. The kitchen works if it's not humid. 3 to 4 weeks to fully dry. The leaves will be crisp and slightly brittle when they're done. Strip them from the stems, put them in a sealed glass jar, label it with a date. Good for 2 years, kept in a dark cabinet. May uses mason jars. Has a full shelf of them in the root cellar. You can also dry yarrow in a low oven, 150 degrees, for about 3 hours if you need it faster. But the air-dried version keeps more of the volatile oils. Slower is better with herbs. It usually is. One caution before I finish. Yarrow is generally safe for most people. That said, people with ragweed allergies sometimes react to it because they're related plants, both in the Asteraceae family. If you're sensitive to ragweed, try a small amount first and see how your body responds. Pregnant women should not use yarrow. It has a long history of use that is not appropriate for pregnancy. And this is traditional knowledge, not medical advice. For serious wounds or high fevers, you see a doctor. This is what we use alongside that, not instead of it. May put up dried yarrow at the end of last summer. She does it every year. Same as she does with the elderberry, the mullein, the comfrey. By October, that root cellar shelf looks like the best pharmacy you've ever seen, and none of it cost us anything but time. The plant has been growing on this land since before I was born. Before Papa was born, probably. It grew on these fence lines when Cherokee families walked through this valley. It kept soldiers alive on ancient battlefields. It's kept fevers manageable in this house for the 43 years May and I have lived here, and it's growing right now, probably within walking distance of your front door. That is not a small thing. That is a long, unbroken chain of knowledge that almost got cut. Tell me in the comments whether yarrow grows near you. Tell me if your grandmother knew this plant. I'd like to hear it. If you try the tea, come back and tell me how it went. Subscribe if you want the rest of what May's cabinet holds. We're just getting started. New video every few days. None of it'll cost you much. I'll see you down the road.